Good evening. I'm Marcus West with another edition of Cold News, reporting to you what was hot today. Today's focus is on the Cold War and its impact on our lives. Here's Ramon Jimenez on the field with a more in-depth report on the matter. Ramon?
Thank you, Marcus. The Cold War was a conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, although the two nations never engaged in armed confrontation. This divided the war into two spheres of influence over political and economic issues. With the world being divided in two, the question might be, what would come next?
Cold War was never actually a physical event. It was an idealized confrontation for global influence, which involved mostly the United States and the Soviet Union, who mutually threatened one another with statements regarding some sort of nuclear warfare. It was a tense rivalry based on the opposite political and social ideals, as the liberal Americans opposed the communist ways of the Soviets. This opposition caused Europe to become divided into two blocks, with each nation depending on one of the superpowers. The island of Cuba, near the coast of the United States, was where most of the action occurred, and that's where our reporter, Ramon, is. Ramon?
We are here with Susan Castro from Havana, Cuba, who has agreed to answer some questions. Susan, your parents were present in the missile crisis. What did they tell you about?
Well, I grew up with stories about it. They said it was really frightening. The U.S. Army invaded the Bay of Pigs in 1961, but it didn't amount to anything. But a little over a year, they invaded again, and they issued a quarantine on our island, and they wouldn't let anybody out.
How long did it last?
For around 2 weeks, and for 2 weeks, my parents said that it was really frightening because nobody knew if the U.S. was going to use the nuclear weapons or not. But finally, when the Soviet Union agreed to the U.S.'s demands, then they let us go.
Thank you. Marcus?
After World War II, Korea was divided into zones of influence. Northern Korea was under the communist influence of the USSR, while Southern Korea was under the capitalist regime of the United States. Superpowers weren't able to decide on the frameworks of the reunification of the country, so in 1948, Korea was formally divided into two separate states, the Capitalist Republic of Korea and the Communist People's Democratic Republic of Korea. These nations were divided by a line in the 38th parallel, although both of them claimed that such division was not permanent. The division was the cause for several tensions and conflicts throughout the last decades of the 20th century. Ramon was also in Germany. He interviewed a local who was present at the fall of the Berlin Wall. Ramon?
We are here with Donnerstag Weissman, who agreed to answer some questions about the Cold War. So, you lived on the East or West?
I lived on the West.
How was it?
It was very difficult. We had family in the East, and we hardly ever had contact with them. But we know that their lives were even worse than ours because the regime was they were really poor.
Were you present in 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell?
Yes, I was. It was a big event. Our lives changed completely. Germany went back to having only one soccer team, and that represented the reunification of Germany.
Thank you. The Cold War was a period of tensions that divided the world into two by an iron curtain. This period shaped our political organization and our lives. No wonder why we're speaking English in South America and not some Russian dialect. Marcus, you have the word.
Thank you, Ramon. Well, that concludes today's edition of Cold News, focusing on the Cold War. From ISC Curitiba, thank you, and we'll see you next time. No, cara, não me